Thank you all for coming. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Kiley, if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could ask you all to remain standing and just keep in your thoughts and prayers for a moment all of our military men and women and the sacrifices they make to protect our country. All right, thank you. Now, before we get started, I did want to take a moment of personal privilege. Mr. Kiley will be leaving us in a few weeks, and I want to take a moment to recognize him for his service to this board and our community. And Sheila and I wanted to say a few words. Did you want to start?
Sure, I'd love to. So I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 9 months, and during that period of time I've had the privilege, frankly, of working with Mr. Kiley. I very much respect his judgment and his thoughtfulness in terms of the decisions that we've been making, and I know that he's got years of working on behalf of this town. So I will be very sad to see him go off of the Board of Selectmen. But I know that he'll remain involved in town affairs. I'm hoping he will. And I guess I have a question for Mr. Kiley. You've been on the Board of Selectmen, you've been on the RTM, Board of Finance. Give us something in terms of what has been one of the most significant decisions you've been involved in during this period of time, something that stands out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words while I think about that.
Please keep your remarks to 2 minutes or less.
There's no timer, right? All right, thank you. And thank you very much. Well, for me, being a public servant is a great honor, and I've done it for a long time, 22 years, and I think in the big picture, which is how I try to look at things, there's priorities that you must have if you're going to be in an office or represent people in a town or a state or wherever. And I've always tried to keep my priorities lined up and consistent and be supportive of them. And very quickly, they have always been education, keeping Fairfield affordable, and taking care of our senior citizens. If I need to find 3 things that mean the most to me and have affected me and affected my votes most over the years, it would really be those 3 things, in addition to everything else we've done along the way, right? Our school system, it's the foundation of our town, it's the foundation of any town, and I'm proud to be a supporter of it year in and year out. And it's the right investment to make for our children today, for their futures tomorrow, and it drives property values. And for 22 years I've been honored to be a part of it and to be supportive of it, and you can see the effects of it over time. The kids that went through 21 years ago are now in college or older, and they're married, and you can see the effect of a good quality Fairfield education means to them and makes upon their life. Keeping our town affordable, hey, it's a tough job, Our citizens demand a lot. Our police, our fire, our public works, our parks, our beaches, our libraries are absolutely second to none anywhere in this state, maybe the country. And they are the excellent services that we must provide while we balance our affordability and being able to pay for them. Looking hard at every dollar we spend, every decision we make, and every investment we make along the way is critically important to both provide those services and to make sure that we're spending every dollar wisely every day. So I take great pride in working hard on that. And senior citizens, they've always been near and dear to my heart. Back in, I think it was 99, we had maybe 1,200 senior citizens that were on our senior citizens tax relief plan. And I think the dollar benefit at that point in time was maybe $900,000. Today, in the year 2015, we have about 1,600 seniors that receive benefit, and it gets close to $4 million. That's a remarkable difference in the plan that it was
Huge.
back in '99, and I'm very grateful that former First Selectman Ken Plato gave me the opportunity to take that plan off the shelf, dust it off, chair a couple committees, and get it going, and bring the awareness to that issue that it now gets every year from the RTM. So it'll never get lost again. It'll never sit on the shelf again. So that's very important to me. But to answer your question, if I have to find one vote, one time, one night, and there's many, and thank you for not asking about my clunkers along the way. I appreciate that. I would have to go back to early 2010, February, March timeframe. It was a Board of Finance vote. It was about Fairfield Woods. And we were deciding what to do with the expansion project that was coming down the pike, right? And we had to do it because the school was getting too large and the population demanded more schoolroom and classroom space. The issue was funding it, right? We were in the midst of a recession. It was 2010, and we weren't out of it for 2 more years. And there are some people who think we aren't out of it today, but that's another conversation. And it was easy to say no to spending money. The project came before us with, I don't know, 2 or 3 options. It was about $17 million, maybe $17.5 million. But the question was, what do we do about the auditorium? And it was difficult because people were telling us, we can't afford it, don't spend the money, we'll come back and do it later. And we all know what that is. Those are excuses to not do what you need to do. So we had a great discussion at the Board of Finance, and I remember Mr. Flynn speaking very eloquently that night about that particular topic, about the need for it and the need for the investment for the kids that go to that school. So we eventually, in fact, I made the motion to go ahead and add the $5.5 million to that project, which was a lot of money, especially in a recession. But even today, I still think it was the right, in fact, I know it was the right thing to do, because, you know, the kids that are coming up from Osborne Hill, Holland Hill, Jennings, and North Stratfield who go to Woods, you know, there's thousands of those kids that have gone through that school since that time, and there'll be tens of thousands of kids that go through that school in decades to come. And since our other 2 middle schools had beautiful auditoriums, the nice new one at Roger Ludlow and the classic one at Tomlinson, it only made sense, even in that difficult economy, to make the investment to give the kids at Woods the same opportunity. So if I had to pick one vote, that's the one.
Thank you very much. I mean, I love the fact that you shared that with us, because it really does give us insight into your thought process and your commitment, frankly, to the people in this town. So thank you again for your service.
Thank you so much.
Kevin mentioned 22 years serving the town, and it wasn't until recently you got any financial reward for that. And I won't ask him about what it is in dollars per hour.
Please don't.
But Kevin has served on the RTM, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen. And he was chairman of the Board of Finance. None of those jobs is easy. They all come with various amounts of crisis, stress, and boredom as you go through those. I've got to tell you, Kevin, I've had the honor and privilege of serving with Mr. Kiley for the last 10 years. 6 on the Board of Finance. We kind of shared part Board of Finance, part this, and certainly on the Board of Selectmen. And I've got to tell you, you're going to be impossible to replace. You were the architect of our senior tax relief program, and I think that's a real legacy of your service when I look at the town, because that's something that's every year provides a much-needed benefit to those in our town, in our community that need it most. Your strong support for education and our kids is certainly something you're known for. A number of things I remember.
Oh, geez.
No, not that list. I got the other one. On the Board of Finance, one of my first introductions to Mr. Kiley, and Mr. Flynn joined us in a non-quorum meeting on a non-voting item, so we were allowed to talk. But what we talked about was politics. What we talked about was putting the town first. What we talked about was getting politics out of the dialogue when items came before the Board of Finance. The first year or so was a little rough, but we sat down to make it better. We acknowledged what we needed to do, but more importantly, we acknowledged the priority of our community and the town. And what I really admire about Kevin was chair at that time, and he was in the majority. He didn't have to sit down with us. We didn't have to meet. We didn't have to agree. He could have said, we've got the votes, we don't need to listen. He didn't. He took time to talk, he took time to listen, and because of that, Fairfield is a better place today. So when you look at the Board of Finance, a lot of that dialogue and a lot of that discussion and the tone and tenor of those meetings is based on Mr. Kiley, along with Mr. Flynn, in terms of sitting down with and helping decide this is the way government should run, this is the way we should do it. Kevin's participation wasn't political, and you've seen that on this board. If you've watched our discussions, you've seen the comfortable level and the tone and tenor of these meetings, and that doesn't work unless you take politics out of it. His financial background, and as a CFO in his day job, has provided tremendous insights to this board and really helped focus the discussions whenever we're coming across a financial matter. Importantly, I've learned during our reviews and discussion, I've learned a lot from serving with Kevin in terms of how to analyze, how to look, what questions to ask, and how to go through that process. I want to really thank him for the non-political tone he's taken, as I've mentioned, and the most recent example is during this budget process, when he stepped back at the end and said, as he was voting on the budget, this is a budget with vision and values. He didn't have to say that. He knew that would come back to bite him, shall we say, at some point. But it was how he felt. It was his honest opinion. And as a CFO, that means a lot to me that he'd take time to speak to it from his day job position and not from a political position. 20 years of service to our community. You know, all elected officials get into this at some measure for community service. And all elected officials at some point want to make a difference. And when I look at Kevin, I know you're not happy with the turn of events. I know you want to continue to contribute. And I know you'll be back on a ballot someday soon. But my highest compliment, my highest measure of success is, Mr. Kiley, you have truly made a difference.
Thank you, sir.
You've made a difference to our seniors, you've made a difference to our schools, and you've made a lasting difference to our community. Thank you. Now, in honor of that, we do have a special item of recognition that has been given out very seldom in our town's history. And Mr. Kiley, if you'd greatly accept or graciously accept this on our behalf in appreciation for your service.
Thank you.
It is the official key to the city. Tell you what, let's stand out here and you can hold that up for just a minute. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which door that works in.
The finance office.
Any long walk, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If I may briefly, I am...
We've got a couple of things I want to say something.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
hold on.
1 minute.
Okay.
Because of Mr. Kiley's wide range of service, it wouldn't be appropriate if just the Board of Selectmen commented. So we brought in some bigger guns. Mr. Flynn, from your term on the Board of Finance, would you have any comments to add to our discussion here?
Bigger guns, the weight joke's already started. All right, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and address you. Mr. Tetro, thank you for calling me this morning and alerting me of your intentions this afternoon. I've been involved in Fairfield politics for about the last 10 years. And as I've said previously, I was very lucky to have two Fairfield political godparents, Sue Eckert and Carl Dickman, who guided me and taught me very early in my career. And then luck befell me again as I was blessed with a political older brother.
Wait a minute.
Substantially older brother. And Mr. Kiley, who's also a sometime mentor and who's led by example with humility, good nature, humor, and common sense. Now, Kevin embodies a public servant, and in the 10 years we have worked closely together, speaking if not daily, every other day. Our conversations were wide-ranging, funny, sometimes ironic, policy wonky, and always ending with us trying to work our way through to what each of us thought was the best for the town. Together, we refined our positions, sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing, but always with the best interests of the town at heart. Now, 22 years is a long time in service to your community. To put it into perspective, a child that was born the year you got elected to your first political office is most likely now graduated college. A lot of sacrifice, late nights, long weekends, meetings too numerous to count, emails, phone calls, reading, campaigning, missed family events, and occasionally angst and stress. But I know, as I know you well, that Kevin enjoyed and embraced every minute of this. And a little dirty secret, in ways that none of us politicians like to admit. There is a bit of narcissism in what we do politically. But we can only pursue our ambitions to make a difference and give back to our community if we have a supportive family, as they make the sacrifice so that we can do what we enjoy doing, what Kevin enjoys doing. So Erica, Aiden, Aaron, thank you for sharing your dad with us for 22 years. The town of Fairfield, your hometown, is so much the better for it, and the town owes you gratitude for your sacrifice on our behalf. Kevin, congratulations on a job well done to date. I look forward to your next act and in working with you once again further up the road.
Kristen, would you like to add something?
Good for you, because Mr. Flynn's a hard act to follow.
It's a very hard act to follow. And to the members of the Board of Selectmen, thank you so much for having me here today. And as an alum of this board and having had the privilege to serve with Selectman Kiley, Mr. Flynn is a hard act to follow, in part because I think there's a lot of emotion. And the emotion is real, and it's right there because of the gratitude. And there are so many accomplishments that we can thank you for. And I think, to me, especially in today's political society, the kind of person you are, you know, Mr. Flynn referenced Mr. Dickman, who also sat here at this table. You have, in exercising your judgment and thoughtfulness and providing the sacrifice that you have for this community, have been a gentleman and a role model for our citizens as to how to conduct yourself and to disagree. We didn't always vote the same way at this table, often, you know, exchanging ideas, but never once was there any rancor or any disrespect at all. And I think that is really something to be applauded. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I would also echo what Mr. Flynn said to your family, because it really is a family experience when you put yourselves out there for the community, and I'm sure that you feel the same way. So it is a privilege to be here to thank you for your service, and I feel grateful to have served with you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kevin.
So now I think we've reached the point where you're allowed a rebuttal.
I am. And I'll be brief. I want to thank the entire town. I want to thank everyone who was here today, everyone that spoke, everyone that said kind things about me. But most of all, I do want to echo the thanks from my family. Erica and Aiden and Aaron have had many a night when I was out at a meeting doing this or doing that on behalf of the town or on behalf of a meeting or at a meeting. So they've sacrificed a lot, and I certainly do recognize that, and I love them for that. Other than that, I just want to say thank you very much for being here. It's an honor. It's always been an honor and a privilege to be a public servant in the town of Fairfield. It's something I will treasure for the rest of my life. And I'll leave you with this. A lot of people, or there are some people who have referred to me as the outgoing selectman, which is true. But I will add, I'm not going anywhere. Thank you.
All right, Kevin, thank you. Next up, we have some special recognition for the Mill River Wetland Committee receiving the 2015 Aquarian Environmental Championship Award for a nonprofit organization. Ladies, would someone like to come up and address the board and fill us in on this?
Can I put the award up here in front?
Yes.
That's great.
And then we also got a certificate from Senator Blumenthal.
Very good.
Thank you. I want to thank you, the Board of Selectmen, for giving us this recognition, and to Aquarium also for having perhaps prompted it. So we're very appreciative of this attention to us, because
Could you
seems well-
introduce who you were, Joy?
what?
Did you give us your name and address? So that-
No, I didn't.
So all the viewers at home will know?
My name is Joy Shaw, and I am 476 Old Mill Road, which is right on Mill River in Perry's Old Mill. We were lucky enough to come to live there in 1956, the fall. It really is a story of amazing program development, largely because of the gift of timing regarding town receptivity, support, and the response of the educational system and parent citizens. Just amazing. So seemingly meant to be, you couldn't get away from it. As I said, we came out in '56. I have had no teaching or formal science background except the minimal high school and college courses that I had to take, and no organizational experience before taking on this responsibility. I was also an environmental ignoramus. But I was an outdoor explorer, always looking for the beautiful compositions in nature. And I had the privilege of art school education a year before I went to college. My interest in river study was first stirred, or really the Mill River study, by the report that Frank Daniels, who was then at that time the Public Works Director, wanted Perry's Dam removed. Having no watershed or river ecology perspective myself, just my artistic reaction based on a structure that seemed to fit so scenically and represented such a significant part of the town's history, I was perplexed. There were no ecological factors cited by the town, such as fish migration, or just the concern for upstream riverside properties that might be flooded because of a backup from the dam in storms. just want to give you that background. That was what first prompted me to be curious about why. In 1957 of April, this was just about 6 months after we had moved into this cherished spot. Suddenly, when I woke up that morning, I looked out the window. Where is the mill pond? Just all down to almost nothing. It was dramatic and horrifying. This was the precursor to the Perry D'Addario gravel excavation plan. I want you to know this because I want you to be aware all this had happened before the River Lab program was launched. Several acres of gorgeous marsh were all east of on the east side of the upper mill pond were removed for gravel to lay the bed of I-95 from Southport to Bridgeport. There was no inland wetland law at that time until 1972 to protect such areas. The D'Addario rerouting of the river through the small Laurel Brook, which passes at the end of what's now our driveway, on a subsequent storm, it washed out the whole entrance, so we were on an island. And at first, they tried several things, but the dam goes like this, east-west, and then takes a leg that goes slightly north by west. And that was as far as the backhoe could get in to relieve the river that had been rerouted through the little tiny stream. And that sent the river out of its course in a way it would never have done otherwise. So it has been eroding towards Sturgis Road that many of you are well aware of ever since. At first, it was a picturesque bend, but the ongoing erosion and the loss of the floodplain, including a great variety of wildflowers that we didn't even have time to identify. You were increasingly aware that this was not a good situation. And that's what we have been trying to operate the River Lab program on. The Mill Plain Improvement Society deserves the credit for finally finding the legal means to stop the gravel operation around 1960. In 1965-6, the Mill Plain Improvement Society took the initiative with the dog food factory owners to deed its 6 Mill Hollow acres to the town. You know that building, it is now the pump station right on Mill Hill Terrace. The Fairfield Garden Club became interested, and then they engaged David Thompson, a Newtown soil engineer, who prepared a plan to improve Mill Hollow for wildlife, quotation marks. But in 1966, in winter and spring, the first Fairfield Conservation Commission was installed, just in time. Because in May, first we had no great concern over them having used the Fairfield Garden Club funds to make a grand esplanade along Sturgis Road. But when I was down I went down to Darien to report on having been my class rep for a wonderful lecture by one of the engineers, or the head engineer working on the Hudson up in New York. And what he had to say about that river was well worth reporting on. I came back to Fairfield, and on my return by Mill Hollow, I was horrified to see the bulldozer still at work, having cleared an enormous swath of Mill Hollow, all the way from the bridge, all the way south towards the river's exit. And I was just so aghast, I just jumped out of my car, I ran down into the hollow, and I protested loudly and vigorously and unstoppably. They're doing a mistake. This is a mistake. This is not supposed to be done this way. Of course, the driver was most annoyed, as you can understand, and he withstood me for a while, and finally he gave up and got out of the machine and went. That was the end of that, but the damage had been done. It was terrible. So I made a call to Ann Carter, who was one of the new members of the Conservation Commission, and then it was revealed very quickly that the Department of Public Works had a plan to remove all trees within 150 feet of the river center, and that was because of fear of flooding, jam-ups and flooding. And that was what caused the misinterpretation of the Thompson direction to thin trees along the river for a better wildlife situation. Mr. Thompson was distraught. The Mill Plain Improvement Society was urging him to report on the plan, and Mr. Thompson kept saying, there is no plan. It's destroyed. There were meetings, I had meetings with David Thompson and with Dick Quinton, who was then an anomaly. He was the Bridgeport Hydraulic Conservation Director, and they were both urging me to start a river laboratory program. I had serious reservations, as you can imagine, as to my capability to launch and maintain, but they were overcome by a deep sense of the urgency and importance of the matter. It seemed worth the risk of failure. Late in May was the first gathering meeting of the Mill River Wetland Committee Group. It included Lincoln Craighead, Judy Wilkinson, who's right here, who's had much of a role with our organization, Cecily Zaraga, Bill Boughton, Al Harlow, and Ann Carter, who was the only non-neighbor present. Our concern was regarding the planned town open space purchase of the Perry, 40-odd acres up and downstream of Perry's Mill, because of what had happened in Mill Hollow. So, boy, another misunderstanding could really be a mess. There isn't much left. So I contacted the Nature Conservancy, and during 1966-7, I studied the ecology of the Perry Mill River area, particularly making a wildlife assessment as best I could. In 1967, January, there was the town purchase of the Perry open space area. Subsequently, I pretty quickly switched to the outdoor lab program concept with Fairfield Public Schools, encouraged by having studied for the Nature Conservancy requirements, which showed the appropriateness and the possible strong appeal of Earth history and the story of the land and river use by different cultures, tied to the main physical and biological concepts of the river system function. In spring of '57, I went up to Wilton for a conference with Bill Eblin on his outdoor laboratory program for those schools. Then I had a conference with wonderful Vinnie Antezzo, who is then Mill Hill School principal. My son was a new student at Mill Hill, and Vinnie was very frustrated. Now here's timing again. He'd just become very frustrated with the Boy Scouts as a leader because they had no strong environmental science program or environmental projects programs. So I engaged Bill Eblin's partner, who was an amateur botanist, who spent an entire day being followed plant to plant by me lugging a large wallpaper sample book into which I pressed all the plant samples with their identifications and notes on environmental roles. I cut a new trail through the lower floodplain that was just past being grazed by Frank Perry's cows. It was so idyllic, which was now very overgrown and took some cutting through to do. This was below the dam. But the delightful discovery there was of a glacial erratic, which would fit in perfectly with what I thought fourth graders would find interesting. So Elizabeth Modrell, a fourth grade teacher, was assigned to check out my river trails. God bless her. It was a memorable trek over the trailed area as it had evolved, as left by Hi-Ho Daddario work, which that great big road that comes in, which we call Excavators Lane or Road. And let's see, and then going through the limited area on the underbrush. Model gave her okay to Mr. Antezzo, and we were off with a plan for K through 6 river tours. I put in a call to a wildflower enthusiast of the Field Garden Club named Pat Morris, and she got 6 lovely garden club ladies to be the first guides, and I prepared information sheets for them and gave them training to lead small groups for Mill Hill. By fall '67, the pilot Mill River Outdoor Laboratory Program K through 6 was launched, joined by Mom, Judy Wilkinson, and other Connecticut Audubon Society volunteers. It was very successful, totally happily received by the whole school, and Vincenzo introduced all the classes to what they were going out for. It went for that fall and winter and spring into '68. It clarified for us that the program was best suited for grades 3 through 6. In summer of '58, Dr. Bork was persuaded by a group appealing, including Peggy Clark, who was a Perry, Roz Payson, who was, I gather, close to the administration of Mr. Sullivan, and another RTM member, stating the case that the Mill River open space belongs to all Fairfield citizens and that all 14 schools should be allowed to participate. And this was immediately granted and immediately facilitated with notices of guide training available, and there were about 60 volunteer trainees crammed into Perry's Mill living room, which is the old industrial area, early in September 1968. I can't emphasize enough the sense of meant to be in this whole experience. All doors were open, no objections, bus costs or other. The schools were looking for more parent involvement at that time, and the town of Fairfield needed to demonstrate the value of open space with some uses. We just couldn't have been rolling along better. It was a cakewalk. The Mill River Wetland Study Group structure, which ran the study trips, was started by Judy Wilkinson. She said, "You can't do it all, Joy. I'll do the scheduling." And that was it, and it went very well. Many wonderful, dedicated guides from the 14 schools, even including one I remember so sadly who was killed on her birthday in the Postrum. There was so many people who really got, tied around your heart because they were fully with you, dedicated, enthusiastic. It was a wonderful camaraderie. Right?
Right.
Okay. Right?
Right.
Okay. The River Lab structure, if you would like to hear it, I could tell you just quickly. The River Lab 3 is introduced to the structure of river systems. The 4 is how the underground water system works and how it's been historically impacted with different cultures leading up to some modern runoff control concepts. River Lab 5 they still bear some relation to, but there's been a lot of impact of the No Child Left Behind law and the concentration on pure science. River Lab 5, productivity and how the productivity of the river nourishes both coastal life as well as inland. And River Lab 6, sixth grade, as you want to say, which is the comparison of land and water overwintering, how organisms do it on land and organisms do it in the water, and how the river is alive in winter. I could tell you a wonderful story about that. I was intensely busy writing the materials for guide, students, and teachers. It just was really nonstop. It was, what can I say? When you're committed to something, the word won't come right now, but nothing would stop me. 1969 summer, the Mill River Ranger program was launched by the Sasqua Garden Club. Roz Payson, to speak exactly, and I was to lead it. This happened because I had said we ought to have a ranger on the open space to explain matters, how to respect the river, and to provide some information about the inhabitants, the animals. Roz Payson picked up on it. This is a way to tie up that big mouth. and it certainly did. I could do nothing but the River Lab program, and the Ranger program took me all summer. Our first director of the Ranger program was Roger Previs, who invented the gravel pile activity, which is something no student ever forgets. It's a river modeling, and it's a whopping success in the program. The Ranger program ran through 1977, and Brian Fagan was an indispensable first-year level director, and in 1971 he went on to be second-year and third-year level directors from 75 to 77, until I had to stop the program because I had no time to work on the school program, the River Lab materials. Also, in fall of 69, in fall of 69, also right after the first session of the Ranger program in that summer, arrived Dr. Betty Del Giorno as the Fairfield Public Schools' first science consultant, with obvious concern about having to deal with a social studies, environmental, interdisciplinary science program led by a non-professional as main part of the science curriculum, even though it had hands-on and discovery key activities at every level, which I could tell you more about if we had time. She did a wonderful thing in getting the audiovisual department photographer named Trudy Wass to work with Joy making slides for packaged lectures, which were the first River Lab 3 through 6 teacher materials, a huge step forward. The 1970s, there was more structuring, such as a wonderful gal named Florence Anderson, who was a botanist and, of course, a volunteer River Lab guide, who became the study group director also. And she assisted in curriculum development and served as guide trainer from 1971 to 75. There were many appreciative teachers, including some key enthusiasts, such as one named Deanna Colbert at Dwight School, grade 4, regarding geology, which she loved, all the plate tectonics and glaciation, etc. There were also some resentful teachers because of the lack of science training for elementary teachers in their schools of education. They did not like having to teach such concepts as water cycle, plant reproduction, plate tectonics, alewife and eel reproductory migration patterns, anadromous and diadromous. But we weathered through. In 1979, we had our first program, office and program manager, a young man named David Gibson of Harvard that year, and that internship was provided by a financial friend. That was the beginning of the structure to really handle the production and care, filing, etc., of the River Lab materials and the board, Mill River Wetland Committee board materials for their events. In 1980 to 82, our next program and office manager was Lisa Robbins, who became Lisa Sissel, who's now unfortunately no longer with us. She developed the Mill River Estuary study trip for River Lab 5. And 1982 to 84, Madeline Maglione, who runs that cute little restaurant downtown, developed the Sasqua Brook Estuary trip for the same level. There was continued success over the years of this pattern of being dependent and having wonderful office and program managers. Now we have Roberta Clark, who is here with us. Roberta, stand up. Yay! She's a heroine, truly. She is a former guide, a former MRWC board member, and she is a genuinely dedicated environmentalist. That we can be sure. Just one more note about the 1980s. About 84 to 88, we had the good fortune of having a gal named Pam Blair, who was head of the study group, which is called the Mill River Wetland Study Group, and she teamed with a good friend, Bobby Miller. She took on the job and beautifully revised the study crypt contents, which at that point from 69 to the mid-'80s had just ballooned with extraneous material accumulated, given by various people, enthusiastic people for what we were learning. And she gave the whole each guide study trip format a new simplified focus. It was a major contribution. With that structural note, I've gone on far too long, and I'm sorry. I will hand this attempt to share with you over to Charlene Braun-Schindler, our MRWC president.
Oh, good.
You're hiding.
And hiding.
Thank you again. Sorry to be so long.
Thank you, Joy. I am Charlene Braun-Schindler. I am president of the Mill River Wetland Committee board right now. And Joy's the history. Joy's the creator and the force behind the whole River Lab program. And we totally are so thankful for you, and for everything that you have done to get our program to where it is today. Because without her background and without what she had started and how the program was designed, and for all the ladies you talked about for making it work, we wouldn't be here today. And as she was saying, Pam Blair came in the 80s and was changing things around. When she left just about the time I started. I started in 1989. This was a time when they were starting to get more guides into the program. And the guides that are coming in we were stay-at-home parents, we were stay-at-home moms, mostly the guys. We're getting guys in there now. We're getting guys. We're the men, the dads are coming in like crazy. But most of us had college degrees, but we were staying home. And a lot were in science and teaching. And this really helped us because we could now set up some curriculum teams and get the revisions that we needed to have that were on the trip, get more science, hands-on, and query-based activities, and into the school too. And two of these that were very outstanding are Diane Rossiter, a guide. She was also our guide trainer for a while, but her background was in teaching, and she became our educational consultant. And another is Ann Weinrod, whose background is microbiology science degree, and she had graduate work in biochem. So, you know her background. Well, she became our director of program development after a while. But with with these two ladies and with others of us that teamed up with them, we were able to help Joy, who did a lot of revisions also, and we also had published reference books for grades 3 and 4. These are some of them, and Joy does all the illustration and the writing for these books. Great artist. And she also developed other books for grade 5 for selected animals and river control for the productivity of the river basin system. So we were very, very involved in the 90s in getting everything set up for when Marceline came in, when all of a sudden the government has passed the No Child Left Behind law, which was stating more wanted inquiry-based science and hands-on, and luckily, we were already in that mode of inquiry-based and hands-on learning. So 1996, Dr. Marceline Barron was hired by the Board of Ed. She was the new curriculum leader of K through 12 science and math, and she saw the River Lab program as a great asset to the school because it had really good educational value, and we were also when 1968, when our program was brought before the Board of Education and it was greatly accepted, we were the only science through the whole system of elementary school science. That was the only science every school studied. Everything else in science was whatever the school wanted to do for science. So we were a set curriculum. But when she came in, she also was creating science curriculum base for all the grades. And she invited River Lab to work with her curriculum writing team of teachers to develop the Fairfield Public Schools K through 8 science curriculum document. And that was passed by the Board of Ed in 1967. And this document set River Lab's connection with the relationship of all the other science programs in the schools 3 through 6. And it also connected it with the other subject areas, math, English, because we're all connected. whatever science you're doing, you have to write, you have to do math. So it really connected us with everything that was going on within the school curriculum. And in the document, it states that River Lab is an assured learning experience. Dr. Barron also made it possible for Diane Rossiter, who was our educational consultant. Before she came in, we were having classes for the teachers, the new teachers that would come in, or going to a different level to be able to understand the science that they were teaching the students. When Marceline came in, she was able to connect that to the continuing education units, so that teachers could now get their CEUs by coming to a class, which they greatly appreciated. And with the No Child Left Behind law that was passed, Connecticut was producing their own Connecticut Mastery Test, and the science curriculum part of that started in 2006. And since the River Lab program was already strong with the inquiry-based approach science, we found that areas with our River Lab program really aligned very well with the state framework standards, and we had to make some changes for some of the other standards. But another advantage was the way that the program was set up with the river basin system, and that how each grade level built on the grade level before it. So with it starting, as she said, with third grade with the basics of the River Lab and building on that, we discovered that the standards that they were asking for, what they wanted covered, we were covering all those, and actually they were in all of our grade levels appropriate. So the only major change we had to make on our grade levels was taking the estuary. Fifth grade had two because we started estuary, as she said, later. So they had the productivity in the estuary both in fifth grade. We had to move the estuary part to sixth grade because that's now where estuary oxygen, the standards the estuary would meet were in the sixth grade program. We had to eliminate, unfortunately, our overwintering program for sixth grade, which was held in January through February. So we were taking those kids out in the winter, had great trips, got in the water, we put hip boots on and go out and pull out rocks, but we had to eliminate that, which is a shame. But with that, our program is it really builds on each other, because from fifth grade, the productivity of upstream estuary then now is the final, and what happens upstream affects everything that's downstream in the estuary. So with Ann Weinrod heading our 100% volunteer River Lab curriculum team, we never got paid. The team focused on all these adjustments we had to make for more real science activities in the classroom and in the outdoor study trips. We created teacher manuals with complete lesson plans. It's a 6-week event. It's 1/3 of the science curriculum for 3 through 5th graders, and it's 1/4 of the curriculum for 6th graders. So we created all that and sent them on, and Ann the teams have been continuing since then to monitor our programs. The title of the Director of Program Development has changed to Curriculum Development, and we do still meet after we do all of our study trips at sections in the fall and the spring, see what needs to be changed. 6th grade, our outdoor study trip has been revised a few times, and we've made it a more strong 6th grade program so the kids are involved with doing the experiments, not the guide doing anything. But the kids go out, they have 10 areas they go to with experiments, they do their experiments, the guides are there to help them, but not to do it for them. And the outdoor experience is so important, and with this, it also brings problems. Our main couple of problems have been increase in population. In the 1990s, all of a sudden there's that big boom of students. So big boom of classes. We take a class out for an hour and a half every time. So every class gets an hour and a half. So with the help of who at that point was the assistant superintendent, Brian Fagan, I went to him and said we were doing 2 trips a day for grades 3 through 4. We want to get through these trips before Thanksgiving. Actually, the early part of November would be even better. And by now, with the way they were going, we wouldn't be done till after Thanksgiving. So talking to him, we were able to change our schedule from 2 class study trips a day to 3 class study trips a day. So, and that held until just a couple of years ago, and now we're doing 4 class trips in one day for third third and fourth graders to get them all done with the sixth grade estuary also in there. And also with sixth grade, we have to have, because of the way we run sixth grade now, and one school goes out per day because the estuary is only at low tide, so many hours a day. And we have to have at least 24 guides, parent guides, out there with us to do what we have to do to keep the students in line and keeping them focused. And so Ann Weinrod went and talked to both Walter Wakeman and to Patrice Fagella, and these are other two people that we totally contribute to our program. Walter Wakeman is the curriculum director for math and science for pre-K through fifth grade, and Patrice is curriculum director for math and science for grades 6 through 12. So Patrice suggested, why don't we have the AP students come in and help out? And what about the alternative high school students? So we just finished our estuary program yesterday, our 4 estuary trips out. Had a great time. Students we had 66 high school students this year. Since 1912, that's when we started. Now we're over 200 that have come out to help be guides with our program, which is so impressive. The kids love it. The students, they have to do indoor training. They have to do the same training we do. They go online, do indoor training. They come out, do the outdoor training with us, and then they come out for their class, their study trip they're going to be handling. They're given assignments to where they're going to stay and help. They just love. Yeah, I just watching those kids yesterday every time, and the high school students, whether they're AP or alternative, they love being out there and helping the students that are around, helping them stay focused, helping them do their experiments. And middle school kids like, wow, this is a older student. This isn't my mom or my dad. They really love that. So it works both ways. And another problem we've had with our study trips, as I said, is parent guides. Now there's more parents that are working 2 incomes. It's 2-income families, so there aren't that amount of parents, whether they're male or female, that are home all day that can take time out. So we switched around how we requirements for our parent guides. And I don't know if you heard what Joyce said or if she mentioned it, but when they started, a guide was committed to do all 4 levels and had to do 3 trips for each level. And that's a lot to ask of somebody, especially in this day and age. So we have changed that over the years so that a guide only has to do 1 grade level, one trip out. They're coming out for their kids. So they're coming out, they're doing their students class. They only have to do 1. The indoor training, which was an hour and a half, has now been changed to online training to do at home. And then they have to do only thing they have to do is their outdoor study training for an hour and a half. So that has really opened up the market for us. And the first year we did this, it was about 2013, we over doubled our guides out there.
Charlene, I hesitate to do this,
Yes,
but
but
we
we
do
do-
have an
time
agenda to
spent.
follow
Okay,
after this.
right.
so-
Okay, so anyway,
and we
we
would like
are,
to present you with a proclamation.
yes, but we are thrilled that we are here. And I don't think I gave my name. I'm Charlene Braun-Schindler. I am at 159 Tamar Drive.
All right, Charlene, thank you.
But thank you.
And you guys have done wonderful things for our community. I went through Holland Hill and Tomlinson before this program was in place, so I am absolutely jealous of what kids are going on today. But if we might present you with this proclamation, it both recognizes your accomplishments and names Wednesday, October 21st, as Mill River Wetland Committee Day throughout the entire town. You guys like to join us? Officially present this, Chief.
That's really great. What a wonderful idea.
Stand over here, let me get on this side.
Thank you so much. I was one of those guys.
Your award is number 21, all day. There you go.
Perfect, thank you.
There we go.
Congratulations.
Make sure you stay up really late tonight, because it's your day all day.
That's right. Stay up.
Tremendous, it's such a unique program.
My wife has gone through.
Yeah, but she was a guy too, I saw that.
All right, then moving on to our next item. May I have a motion to consider and act upon the minutes of regular meeting of October 7th?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any comments or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Next up, we have one resignation from the Southwest Regional Mental Health Board, Patricia King, unaffiliated, from 211 Harbor Road. Her term is 11/13 to 11/16. However, her resignation date is October 13th, 2015. Next up, we have the League of Women Voters here to report to us and give us some updates on the new polling locations.
Thank you. I'm Bryce Perry,
Thank you. And
co-president of the League, and
Margaret Mary Fitzgerald, co-president.
good to see you.
Thank you.
thanks. Well, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the League, and we are really charged to get out the vote. So when we heard about the redistricting and changes to polling places, we wanted to get involved. So we met with the Office of Voter Registration, Registrar's Office.
Yes.
That's not so hard to say.
No?
And with the first selectman, and said, how can we support getting out the word on what's changed? So at that time, the postcard was being discussed, and then obviously it went through. So we tried to come up with some alternatives that fit into the plans of the League. With the help of Holly Lanise, who works at the Registrar's Office, we got the district map, and she pinpointed where the polling places are. We put it on some poster board. Two big events that we do are voter registration Sundays at the Stop and Shop, at the different Stop and Shops. Sundays at Stop and Shop is a very popular place to be, let me say. And so in addition to registering people to vote, we also put up the big poster, and we have a street guide that Holly also gave us. So we were stopping people, hundreds of people we were able to interact with and say, do you know that your polling place may have changed? What's your address? And by street, we could do that, or look at the map. And I think that was, we felt like we really made an impact. I think that was great. We also put the street guide and the map at the Board of Ed, Board of Finance, and Board of Selectmen debates, so we had some exposure there. And then tomorrow, I will be putting it on permanent display at the Bigelow Senior Center, because I think that's a nice place, and they can spend time with it as well, so,
Good.
And that's great. So it kind of piggybacked on some of the things that we were doing, and we were able to speak with people as well.
Bryce and I submitted a letter to the editor that was published in the Fairfield Citizen, the most recent edition, explaining to people that their voting polling place may have changed, and how to contact the registrar's office in Fairfield to make sure that they're not wasting their time in going to the correct place for voting. And the last item that we wanted to share with you is, and actually you'll be the first folks who received this. It is hot off the press, thanks to Tom Flynn and Mary Hogue, who are also members of the League of Women Voters. But the Voters Guide, the 2015 Voters Guide, will be published in tomorrow's Fairfield Minuteman, and a number of other, so you folks get the first hot off the press copy.
And we get it free, yeah.
We promise not to charge everybody.
Yeah.
And really, the League is proud and pleased to really be able to provide just such an important service to our Fairfield community in getting out the vote and in helping our citizens really become informed voters. So we appreciate your giving us the opportunity just to kind of share briefly the work of our group and the many volunteers who help with our mission. So,
Well, one, thank you, because it's the ultimate community service group, because what you're really doing is helping us protect the right to vote for every citizen out there.
our democracy.
But
Absolutely correct.
what I'm hearing you say is the big takeaway is that no matter where you live, because of the redistricting and because polling places have changed, not for everyone, but there is no way to determine whether it changed for you or not without checking
Absolutely.
with
The Registrar of Voters.
the Registrar of Voters. I think it's also on the town
And on the
website.
website.
where you
You
can-
mentioned that in the Voters Guide.
where you can
So we
click
pointed
on
them, yes.
where do I vote, put in your address, and it will tell you the polling place you go to. Polls are open 6 in the morning till 8 at night on November 3rd.
Exactly.
Okay. Just to my colleagues, do you have any comments?
I just want to say thank you, and thank you to Mr. Flynn for all your effort and all your hard work to get the voters out, which is very important.
And I would echo that. It's so important. I mean, just this right here, Fairfield residents do know where your polling location is.
And that was really the message.
That's
Yeah.
the message. And then, of course, the postcards were great. And then, exactly. And then, especially for our seniors with the website, I mean, I talk to people all the time, but for seniors who may not use the web,
Right.
to know that they can call the registrar's office, and that it's going to be, the information
At the
we
senior
posted at the
center, yes.
Bigelow Senior Center is just so, it's such a great job that you're doing to educate us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the
all.
opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. All right. Now, next item on the agenda, we have a report from the Southport Fire Department, who's charged with protecting all of the voters that we want to make sure make it to the
Thanks for
polls.
deflating my line on that one. I am Peter Kopko, and I live at 29 Pease Avenue in the beautiful village of Southport, town of Fairfield. Andy Caliper is going to stand and support me right behind. This is Chief Caliper. First off, I just want to, and I will be brief because my cousin Jen Carpenter told me I needed 5 minutes, so we're going to do the best we can. I want to thank Mr. Tetreault and the board. I joined the department in 1975. No sense bringing up the Civil War, but this is the first time in 40 years that I've been serving the department that someone from the town administration has invited us to say thank you and acknowledge us, and we appreciate that very much. So this is the first time we've seen it. So our members were very delighted. I'll just talk briefly a little bit about, first, the department. The building, who you know, is on 69 Main Street. It was built circa 1909, 1910. It originally resided over on Station Street, where it had steamers and horses that were down the street in the barn and that whole story. So we came from the original birth of firefighting. We were signed into existence on October 31st, Halloween night. It was a Friday night. They say it was a stormy night, and I think they were enhancing the story, but in 1895. So this month, everyone is invited to attend our open house and celebrating our 120 years of service to the town of Fairfield. It'll be 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon at the Southport Fire Department. We'll be having safety demonstrations. We encourage children to come in costume. We'll have a safety trailer. We'll be doing a demonstration on extrication with our Jaws of Life, and it is always a nice day, so everyone's encouraged to come. We'll talk a little bit about the equipment we have. We house a pumper. We house a special service unit truck, which came from the idea of storm service, and that is pumps, generators, squeegees, mops, etc., for salvage and overhaul. And in these days of these storms and whatnot that we've had in hurricanes, etc., we've put that truck to use, and it's become a very valuable tool. We also house a small all-terrain vehicle that we can get in onto the beach, into the woods, high dense areas where more rescue vehicles cannot make it into. The people are volunteers. We sleep there. We are on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. When available, the crews will literally sleep overnight. We train. We follow the guidelines of NFPA and OSHA. Along with our career brothers and sisters, we have to follow all the guidelines and requirements to be a certified firefighter and operate in the state of Connecticut. Training does take a lot of time, and again, it takes us, as volunteers, it takes us away from our families, it takes us away from our other normal chores around the house, and these are the different items that we have to face in trying to get volunteers in to keep them going and get them interested in the volunteer service. We do boast a large amount of members who have gone on to become career firefighters, career police officers. We have Deputy Chief Koskinas of the Westport Police Department started with us. As an example, David Russell, for those of you who remember Chief Russell, David Jr., his son, went on to the FDNY and put a career there. So we've spawned off a lot of people into other full-time careers because of us. We take people up from 16 and up. We are a nonprofit 501c3. We also bring in community service operations that we do. We're most noted for in town, if everybody knows, the Fairfield Half Marathon with Steve Lobdell. We have a large role that we do in helping get that off the ground. That is also a very nice fundraiser and part of our community service branch. We also do park cleanups, Earth Day, anything we can do to help support the community. So it is a special day to be able to talk about our department. It is, as is a dangerous job. People have asked us, are we, as volunteers, do you really get involved in the firefighting? A quick little story. On the night of Sandy, when that rolled into town, our Southport Fire Department, along with the career engine, which is also housed, by the way, in our firehouse, with 2 firefighters and a career lieutenant, were dispatched to mutual aid to a structure fire in Easton. And as we were responding to it, it turned out it was a false alarm. We were sent back to Southport. The Easton truck was sent back to their station. Subsequently, the hurricane hit there. It came across the road. The trees were coming down. The gentleman on board, the 3 firefighters, had abandoned the truck. The trees came down. Unfortunately, one of the volunteers, Lieutenant Russell Neary, was struck by the tree and killed on the same call that the Southport volunteers were going up to. So it is a dangerous job. We do put our life on the line. We do it for the community. We do it proudly, and we continue to do the job. We hope to be here for another 120 years. And if we have one thing I'd like to say too, our new chief, Dennis McCarthy, who is in the office right here, we've known him for a long time, and we welcome the new change in town. We've known Dennis for a long, long time. He, along with Deputy Chief Kieran Dunn, who has joined the Fairfield Fire Department, have come into the town, and we have met with them several times. We are looking forward to the future in the fire service, and Dennis assures us that we're going to be working together, and we're very excited about what the future holds for us. So if any questions, I'd be glad to.
Any questions from Jake?
I'd just like to say thank you so much for your service and the tremendous value you bring to Fairfield. It sounds very interesting. It sounds like a huge commitment, but you obviously love what you do, serving the community. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Quick question. How many firefighters do you have these days?
Active firefighters, 38.
38.
Yes.
Wow, that's an
And then
impressive number.
We still have about another 100 on the books, right, Andy?
At least.
Yeah. And speaking of Civil War, we still got a few of those left, so. But we, those are the actual certified firefighters and that fluxes right now. We have, we were bragging 2 firefighters we have of ours that are up in the full-time academy up in Windsor Locks,
Great.
who have actually dedicated their time to actually take time off from work to live at the academy and do the full treatment up there, so.
That's great. Thank you very much for your service and your passion for protecting the citizens of our town. We greatly appreciate you being here.
And thank you for your service. Thank you. Congratulations.
Can I ask you one
Sure.
more question? Are there any women who are on in Southport?
Yes, we call them firefighters.
Wonderful.
Just everybody's firefighters.
Which is wonderful. So how many women do you?
Right now, there's 5. And then we have several women that are in the department as we call social members, but also male or female as a social role. When I say certified, they meet the criteria to go into a hazardous environment, structural firefighting interior. Some of the people that choose not to do that, and it's welcome for anybody can be a Southport volunteer. And we look for your other skills, be it accounting, be it business, marketing, public relations. Our board of directors is made up mostly of non-active firefighters. So we have walks of life from developers to doctors to attorneys. So we pick from a crop of different talents, and we encourage them. Our open house is a great time to pick from the public, and we try to find out who's who and get them interested, and we show them around, and it's very successful that way. So when we sit down with our board of directors, we have 16 of them. They run the show, and we have a lot of talent at the table to help continue, moving on with our project.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, simply, I just want to say, one, thank you for coming today, but really thank you for your service and everything you're doing for our community, and hopefully for 120 more years.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Just one last quick one. The event is on Saturday, the 31st.
Halloween Day, 10 a.m.
So 3.
till 10 to 3.
We'll bring our pumpkin.
Please.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if I might appeal to my colleagues, we need a little bit of a schedule change.
Okay.
It's been requested we move item 18 and take that up next. May I have that is agreeable with both of you? I can have a motion to
Sure.
take that out of sequence?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, then next up is item 18, which is from the Chief of Police, which is to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Chief of Police. Resolved that Michael C. Tetro, First Selectman of the Town of Fairfield, is empowered to execute and deliver in the name and on behalf of the Town of Fairfield an agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for $228,346 for the fiscal year 2015 Port Security Program grant. Said grant to be used to fund 75% of the cost of the CBRNE-equipped shallow water vessel to support the Fairfield critical infrastructure. That is now before us. Is somebody here from the police department that would like to address this?
There's actually two of us from the police department here to address in case you have
Well, you gotta have backup.
questions. Always. First of all, thank you for allowing us to speak on the matter. Just to give a little background on it, for probably over the last 50 years, the Fairfield Police Department has maintained a presence on the water. Obviously, we have a big marine and a big beach area. And our mission is twofold, and for the last 50 or so years, we've had two vessels that have performed that function. We have a larger vessel that can perform functions that a smaller vessel can't, meaning that when there's rough seas, when there's areas that require a larger presence on the water, a more stable presence on the water, we have a larger boat that does that. Currently, our larger boat is also a grant-funded boat that we own now, and in addition to that, we do get funding from Homeland Security Marine grants that allow us to maintain the expenses of funding, of having that boat. In addition to that, we have a smaller boat that, obviously some of the inlets and some of the cals out there that are unable to be maneuvered by a larger boat require a smaller boat presence. So we maintain a smaller boat to serve those purposes. And at the same time, during fireworks or other events, we certainly have both vessels out there depending upon the needs of our marine unit. So, we currently, our smaller boat is an older boat, and we anticipated going through a funding process to replace that boat in another 2 years. It's kind of met its maximum ability. Plus the value to sell it obviously declines over time. We were very fortunate enough that one of our Marine officers, Officer Wiltsey, did apply for a Marine grant through Homeland Security. It's funded from the Homeland Security, and we were awarded a grant, and the grant will cover 75% to replace our smaller boat. However, it does require us to come before all of you because it's in changing the plans. So rather than 2 years from now us coming forward looking to fund an entire boat, we come before you now saying we found alternative funding sources. However, it is going to require a 25% investment on the part of the town to do that.
Can I just
Go
ask,
ahead.
I saw that you outlined how you would fund that 25%. The sale of your existing vessel for $30,000, some fuel savings. Is there anything that you want to kind of highlight in terms of, is this going to affect the department in any way in terms of coming up with this money or taking from another budget?
Well, obviously, we put forth a budget at the beginning of the year that we anticipate where our expenses are going to go. Given that this is a unique opportunity, we kind of have to make some decisions and yet still maintain the service level. And I think if I were to run through it, and I have the deputy chief here, if I misspeak or he can provide other areas of explanation to it, I'll just go down the list if it's helpful. We anticipate the sale of our existing boat to be around that 30,000 mark. We did receive an assessment of that at that range. Now, granted, we could get more, and in all likelihood, make it a little less, but we anticipate it to be right around there. The in-kind allowance for expenses, these are expenses that the government will recognize as services that the town provides in support of the boat and in support of the mission. So we're anticipating around $6,400 for that. We do, however, recognize that it may be more. If we can try to convince them that our services are above and beyond that, we may anticipate a little more in that area. Removal of one light bar from our capital replacement. Obviously, vehicles and equipment in our vehicles is very, very important. However, if we're looking to, on the level of importance, we can try to salvage an old light bar or make adjustments on our lighting package for one of the vehicles. Given the fact, it's not ideal for us, but given the fact that we have to come up with, this money to support the grant, we're looking to do that. Motor vehicle fuel, anticipated reduction, obviously, that includes a saving on the expenses, and we're anticipating that much. It could be a little bit more. We're hoping a little bit more. Reduction of our inventory of vehicle parts. We have a full-time mechanic that maintains our fleet of vehicles. So in speaking with him, he indicated that he may just be able to reduce in different areas. That's not necessarily going to impact the fleet. Line item, anticipated special officers, line item savings. We have special police officers that perform a variety of functions, and we're looking at maybe tweaking some of their roles so we can get some savings there. Again, not in those critical areas that we need them for. Reduction in inventory of our ammunition, although that sounds very significant, and in some regards it could be, but we always prepare and plan for the future. So if this year we had to minimize and limit, that's not saying we're not buying any ammunition, just anticipates we'll be able to reduce a little bit and use some of our stockpile. Anticipating the next budget year, we'll just kind of continue on our expenditures. And then the third thing, the last and final thing is some building maintenance. We have a building maintenance line in our budget, and we're just going to look to put off some of the maintenance that we may have done. Again, not something critical and not something that we anticipate is going to weaken the building. I mean, obviously we maintain a building that's been there since 1976. We take pride in that. So this is not something that's going to impact the building or create further expense or larger expense if we don't do that. But in a nutshell.
No, so in the end, we can find a way to fund everything through the current year?
Yes.
Right? With these adjustments?
And again, look, it's not ideal, and I recognize the fact when we present our budget with the needs of the organization.
Right.
But I think we also understand that we have an opportunity here. So if we can tweak it a little bit and still maintain our integrity of the budget and our mission, then we have to do that.
Thank you.
Does the grant cover the operating costs for the boat?
No, it does not.
Okay, so that would,
Well,
If I could,
if you could step up to the mic and answer, please.
Although it doesn't, the boat that we currently have has fallen under a sustainability grant. So each and every year, it's never a guarantee, but each year that we own the old boat, we've received enough money to sustain that asset. This boat would become available for the same opportunity.
Okay.
and when Chris said, and when the deputy chief says the old boat, we're talking about the new boat. The larger boat that we have that was funded to us through Homeland Security, we apply for and receive sustainability money for that, for the operations of that boat. The boat we're going to sell and get the new boat in, since it's under the federal government, it likely, or will apply to see if we can get some sustainability money for that. Either way, the impact is we're operating a small boat. So we're still going to be operating a small boat with this grant. It's just the expenses will be for the operating the newer boat rather than the older boat.
All right, thank you. Any further comments from the board?
No?
Any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If I might, item 19 is related to this, and if I might ask that we have a vote to take that out of order also.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chief, since you're here, if you could speak to item 19, or is that covered under the description that you've just given us?
It is the same, I think it's, it's resolved that we're going to accept it and purchase the
I think
boat.
one is the grant,
Yes.
and
One
the other is the
Accepted.
acceptance and the money
The-
authorization.
Yes.
So we need to vote again.
Yes, oh yes, we have to vote, the first one, the grant application can be approved by us. The authorization to spend the town matching portion
The 76,000.
needs to be authorized and go through all three boards. So that resolution will be going on to the Board of Finance and then the RTM.
Got it.
All I can say is that, we maintain a large, footprint out there on the water, and it's a functioning and very needed footprint, and our dual fleet of vehicles is a very important component of our marine unit, and I think that it behooves the town to invest the money in this grant to purchase these smaller boats and maintain that presence.
And I think what we've seen is certainly through the storms, through some of the events, as you mentioned, the fireworks, and with a number of large number of people we have out on the water, we've had a few incidents in the past few years, and it's been very helpful to have the boats to be able to react on a timely basis and help save lives. So I want to both thank your department for the response out there, as well as our fire department, which has teamed well with you in doing that. So we literally have a great team of first responders on the water to complement our land-based units.
Our public safety response on the water presents a lot of unique challenges that the land does not present. So having a active marine unit, police, and a presence from the fire department, as well as the relationships among other communities, is really even more important because of those unique challenges on the water. So I think we are proud of our marine unit and the cooperation we get from all the other agencies.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
I just had one other question/comment. With what you provided with us, you're saying that our current shallow water response asset does not meet mission requirements set forth by the United States Coast Guard FEMA guidelines. So is that an issue that we need to resolve this regardless, correct? Because we're not meeting the guidelines?
Well, I think that, and maybe I'll ask the deputy chief if he's more knowledgeable about that, but the summary would be that boat is 15 years old, and some of the more national level challenges that we all prepare for are not met necessarily by having the asset that's 15 years old.
And a lot of it's related to some equipment on the boat. The
Right.
new asset would contain biological detectors, which the current one doesn't have, so that it can operate in a truly regional environment.
Yeah, and I think now that when you say that, people will automatically say, are we over extending our mission? The federal government always looks at Homeland Security and their ability to respond to Homeland Security to buy down risk. And what they believe is, rather than just give money indiscriminately to areas, they look at areas, specifically in this area, the port of Bridgeport and other things along the coast of Connecticut, and they look at where appropriate money will be invested to improve and buy down that risk. One of their buy downs is certainly when it comes to chemical, biological, and nuclear detections. Now, so the federal government looks at the town of Fairfield and says, you have maintained a marine presence and a functioning marine presence for local and regional needs, for people who are out there enjoying themselves. We will find it appropriate to invest money in that area to maintain that mission. At the same time, we're going to ask that you accept this money with the understanding that it'll have better capabilities, so that if we need you in a regional capacity, you're there to help us too. So it's basically doing our mission and at the same time supporting the larger mission, which we would be doing anyway. Now we have the equipment to do that.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board?
Just really quickly, thank you very much for working hard to secure the grant and to increase our public safety on the water, and we're very proud of you too.
Officer Jim Wiltsey, this is the second grant he's applied for, so he deserves all of the credit for doing
Great.
it. So thank you.
Any comments from the public? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, back to the agenda.
Yes.
We are up to item 8 from the Department of Public Works, to hear a report on the first annual Old Dam Haunted House.
Great topic here.
Where's your costume? I thought you were coming in costume.
I threatened to come in costume, but last weekend I stayed in makeup all weekend with the haunted house, so I needed a break.
I thought that was a promise, not a threat.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this. I'm going to keep it brief because I know you as a board have an active agenda and many speakers have to come before you. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. Jerry Lombardo planted the seed by several years ago asking me to move a venue I did at my own home into more of a public forum, and quite frankly, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it because I had done it for 25 years. It's a big undertaking, and I just really wanted a break, so I didn't want any part of it. But Jerry kept on hounding me, and my son unfortunately followed my DNA. So I connected Jerry with my son, and as they say, the rest was history. I'll give you a brief background. We really wanted to look at this and say, how can we produce this in such a way where we could get all the different organizations to volunteer, being spearheaded by Public Works, but widely supported by Recreation, Fire, Police Explorers, Southport Volunteer Fire Department, all these different agencies to step up and do things. And as much as we're asking them to help, we also knew we had to invest money to get it kickstarted, to buy certain materials in order to develop it, but then also tasked with making it affordable for residents. So we're being pulled in a lot of different directions, but we feel we pulled it off. We feel it's a $10 value. You get a hayride, you get the life scared out of you, you get a hayride back to your car and go home and have a cup of coffee in front of the fireplace because you'll need it. But we really felt like a family of four could afford $40, much better than other venues in this area that go for $20, $25, and even $30 per head. We encourage people to come out and support it because it's not just celebrating the volunteerism from what everybody's doing for us, but it's also going to charity. We're going to be supporting Jerry's Youth Council, Jerry's Teen Theater, the Fairfield easy for me to say, Fairfield Firefighters Charitable Foundation. So we just think it's a really good way of all the units bonding together as town employees, giving of themselves, keeping the price point affordable for residents, and having some fun at the same time. It's far from what I expected to say, but I really did want to expedite it for your
And
benefit.
this is the colorful flyer that we have that highlights us all, right?
Yeah, it does. And I also brought some more extra pictures that I was going to share with you if you care to see them.
Just right off the top, first of all, thank you to Jerry, Parks and Rec. Scott, thank you to your team at DPW, to Fire Department, and all the other town departments that are part of this. I think this is great. I mean, what a tremendous community service to come up with something for just $10 a head. And keep our people in Fairfield, give them something about this, and I think this is just a great tradition. I did get a chance to visit your house and see the original rendition of all this, and it does scare you, so please come on down.
Well, actually, I have a message from most of the volunteers. They said, "Where's Tetro?" So I promised that I'd be putting you on the spot. We hope to see you down there this weekend.
I will be there. Hey, $10, it's a cheap date.
There you go, it's a cheap date. I must just close by thanking my son, who's taken an active role in terms of the layout design, the engineering department, who took an active role with the building department and the fire marshal's office to make his vision be compliant and approved by all the boards. Jim Ryan and Jeff Minder, two kingpins with the Department of Public Works. Every time we hit an obstacle, it was never an obstacle, it was just something we had to change direction to get it done. Jerry and Jenna from the rec department, Smitty from the fire department, Chris Liddy from police, the Explorers. Quick war story for you. I can't refuse to acknowledge these things. These kids aren't just out there 7 nights giving up 4 and 5 hours directing traffic and making sure we're safe. Behind the scenes, they showed up at the rec center behind Jerry's building, painting plywood so we can get it done. Came down on the weekend to help us set up props. Even one of the youngsters' mothers brought us all pizza and soda. I mean, volunteerism to a level that it's just unbelievable, right? Your son's giving up all his time, and oh, by the way, I'm going to spend money and get pizza and soda for the other volunteers. It doesn't get better than that. Southport volunteers, we asked for lighting 7 nights, 6-7 hours a night down there setting up lights, keeping the public safe. Everybody's making a sacrifice. Everybody's making it happen. We're excited, to say the least. We encourage you to come down. We want to scare you. You'll be thrilled. You'll be thrilled. If you don't have nightmares, we didn't do our job. 2 quick things before I forget.
Nightmare.
We tell all our volunteers, if you have a voice at the end of the night, then you didn't scream enough. You didn't do your job. And the second thing, we scare because we care.
All right.
Thank you.
Any comments from the board?
I'll just say it again. Our departments are second to none, and the way you work together on this with your volunteers is just amazing. So, thanks, guys.
And I am truly scared. I was actually, my kids are planning to go tomorrow evening, and I wasn't even thinking of going myself, but now I'm going myself, and
gotta
I
go.
am going to
gotta go.
scream loudly. So
You gotta
this
check
is-
it out.
What a great tradition you're starting. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, thank you, and that's how we feel. We really feel this is the start of something good.
That's
So
great.
hopefully, we'll be able to prove that.
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you all very
Congratulations.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Good luck the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
All right, next up, to approve, from the Conservation Commission, to approve a donation of $1,500 from the H. Smith Richardson Conservation Trust Fund to the Southwest Conservation District as recommended by the Conservation Commission. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Mr. Carrot, oh, you're there.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
here. I'm here. I'm ready.
Good to go.
All right.
Waiting.
Please introduce yourself and take
Yep,
us through.
I'm Brian Carey. I'm the Conservation Director for the town of Fairfield. I've been here since May, so I've met some of you, but just getting settled in, so thank you. We brought this request in front of you tonight. So the Southwest Conservation District, just for a little background, there's 5 conservation districts in the state of Connecticut. They're actually a quasi-governmental function. They're funded through the DEP. They came up against the budget this year. They normally have a budget, all 5 districts, of about $600,000. They've cut that down to $300,000. Their actual operating budget is much more in the $1 million range, so they're in dire straits. They've always kind of functioned off of donations from either inland wetland or conservation commissions throughout the state. So you can imagine that their fundraising has not been going as well either. They do provide a vital role for towns and municipalities throughout the state through education. Basically, what their biggest role, though, is if there is a technical land use project that's coming through, they will actually provide a environmental review of that project for the town as kind of like a third party, independent third party. In the town of Fairfield in the past, so they've done public outreach to horse owners. They've had educational component with that to teach people about stormwater management. So I'm looking forward to working with them on a couple things regarding the Sasko Brook watershed coming up in the next year or so to get them involved, because they do have the capacity to do a lot of outreach in our community. So the grant, the money that we're requesting, $1,500, would pay their entire ask. But that money's coming out of the Smith Richardson Trust Fund, so there really is no cost to the town. The fund, back in the day when it was established in the 70s, was $50,000 the way it's written. Basically, we can take off the interest. The board can approve the interest.
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
it's not coming before this board because of a budgetary issue. It's coming
No.
before this board because this board has to authorize
Yes.
any use of the funds from that trust fund.
Any of the money coming off the top of the interest, you can approve without having to go to Board of Finance. If it was to come out
Principal.
of the principal, it would have to go to Board of Finance as well. So basically, the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen have to approve any money spent off the interest of the fund.
Okay.
So as it stands today, the fund is about $308,000. That's even after we paid for the recent open space acquisition on Fairfield Beach Road. So it's in good shape.
All right, very good. Any questions from the board?
No.
All right, okay if we go to the public? Any questions from the public? All right, back to the board. Anything else before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Have a great night.
In looking at the agenda, I've noticed that we've got a number of items from Public Works. We only have one item at the end from the Director of Health, and I was wondering if you would consider moving that up for Mr. Cleary.
Sure.
Okay?
Absolutely.
May I have a motion to take item 17 out of sequence?
Motion to take item sorry,
17.
17 out of sequence.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Cleary.
I will keep it as brief as possible. This is our Preventive Health Services Block Grant. We get this every year. The state has decided to go with a 3-year contract as opposed to a 2-year contract. The last time we came before the board, it's $42,843, authorizing the selectmen to sign the contract to receive it. We'll run 2 programs out of this. We'll continue with the bike lane striping that we're doing. We did the north-south Mill Plain Road route. Now we will do east-west, the shoreline route, about 12 miles of striping, 6 miles on either side of the road. The second program we will run is a healthy restaurant initiative. And it's basically a program that's designed to allow the non-chain style restaurants a chance to submit their menu items for an independent review to deem that they meet certain health standards, to be deemed a healthy menu item by the National Restaurant Association. And we will provide them, the funds will go towards, initially towards marketing materials, menu placards, table placards, things like that, that the restaurant will, the benefit of joining the restaurant. We'll have 5 towns joining in this effort: Norwalk, Westport, Weston, New Canaan, and us. We have restaurants have already participated in focus groups to deem that they're interested in this program, and so that's the plan right now, to fund those 2 programs for 3 years.
I might. I want to get this before us officially, so I'm going to read the motion and ask for a move to approve. Sure. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Health. Resolved that Michael C. Tetro, First Selectman of the Town of Fairfield, is empowered to execute and deliver in the name and on behalf of the Town of Fairfield a contract with the Connecticut Department of Public Health for a $42,843. That's $14,281 per year of a 3-year contract. For preventive health and health services block grant for policy and environmental change for chronic disease prevention for the period October 1st, 2015 through September 30th, 2018. Said grant will be used for chronic disease prevention through nutrition, weight management, and physical activity. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
So this is officially before us. Mr. Cleary, any further discussion on your part or discussion?
I would entertain any questions you have. I'm trying to keep it as brief as possible.
Sure. It sounds like a great way to spend the grant money.
Thank you.
I took the shoreline bike route, I think it was 3 weeks ago or so, and it was beautiful. I mean, I was so thrilled to be to see where I could bike ride safely, and it was beautiful. So, and I love the restaurant idea as well. I think it's a great idea. So, it's a 3-year grant, or it's a grant that you'll spread over 3 years. Are you going to, for example, on the bike route, do a couple of miles year 1, a couple of miles year 2? How are you thinking you're going to work this?
I believe we'll work with the engineering department, and they'll map out the progress of that according to their their striping schedules. But we'll work with them on that, whatever they see. But we won't receive all the funding up front, so it'll just be limited per year. So we'll most likely divide it up into portions every year.
And you'll do the same with the restaurants in terms of dividing,
Yes,
your
it's essentially $6,000 a year will go towards that, and that may change, and the state has said we can accept budget revisions and as the program evolves. As more towns come in at the end, our costs may go down, so we may, be able to reportion that and do more striping or things like that.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, good.
All right, any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck with this. All right, now, to the Director of Public Works, and this first one is postponed from October 7th, 2015. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Green Skies for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Mill Hill Elementary School, located at 635 Mill Hill Terrace, for the sole benefit of Mill Hill Elementary School, the term of the agreement being 20 years be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, no, not yet. Let's talk about it first. All right. Mr. Bowman, do you want to talk to us about that?
I think Stan said it more. I mean, there's a question you had asked.
Right.
Mhm.
I wasn't here, so Stan basically trying to deal with that.
We'd asked about the potential renovation or
The way we
construction.
understand it, there's no agreement that they're going to remove this from the roof if you put a second story on it. And I think Ed might be able to speak a little in more detail as to what might happen then. I think he asked them what might happen 10 years out or something if they decide to put a second floor on. But they have not agreed to remove it. Obviously, they said that they would have a hard time meeting their debt service if they weren't getting income from the system for any length of time. There are provisions for a short, if sections need to be removed for repairs, but to do something like that, I think we'd have to either do a buyout, they said, they talked to us about it, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So you need to understand that.
before you make a decision, I think.
That's true of any roof, too, any of the roofs.
Yeah. But typically, what
Mr. Morbido up here to talk about plans for Mill Hill improvements.
Sure.
Ms. Morbido, could you,
it's an
as
unknown.
as a representative from the Board of Ed, could you fill us in on what the plans are for Mill Hill improvements as you know them today?
As I know them today, Mill Hill is not our next project. Farther down the waterfall trail, next one up is Holland Hill. As far as the plans, the scope of the work is what's outlined in the MGT evaluation that was done for enrollments, and another part of the study was done for deficiencies at our schools based on population growth and what have you. There's
Any
right
plans
off.
that impact the roof at Mill Hill?
No, not at this time. We do
Any
not know
project-
what,
Any project that might grow into a project that would impact the roof at Mill Hill?
not that I can visualize from the information that I know.
Sorry to jump in there, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Did you have some
No, I guess as a follow-up for Stanton, perhaps, is there a clause, or is there something that we can put in there that would protect us if we did do roof work, or is that not, are we ruling that out because we've already talked to?
I think if you do roof repairs, they're supposed to take care of that. They stands a section at a time. You're going to do the repairs, they'll take it off, put it back, or take it offline, whatever. But again, as I said, that if you're going to take the whole system down, it's their whole revenue stream, the bank financing, like that, their debt service gets impacted tremendously. So they said we probably would do is take it, you could take it off the roof, do the repairs, you terminate the contract, and then you ask someone to come in and they probably do the contract all over again for the remaining part of the contract, or other bidders would. But there would be damages, you're not providing the power for that year, whatever those lost revenues, we'd have to pay. And that's the same in any of these contracts.
Yeah, I'm sure that if we agreed to reimburse some of the lost revenue, they wouldn't have a problem with it, but I don't know that we're in a position to do that, quite frankly, so. They really only care about keeping the revenue going.
How much is the cost savings to the town for having this system in place on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, it's $5,500 based on today's rates, but over 20 years, it's $110,000. Again, last year it was smaller. The rates went from 15.5 to 17.1 cents this year. So every year, as our rates go up, we get a bigger benefit. That's the thing.
Right, so it's $110,000 in cost saving us over the 20-year term.
Yeah, based on
What
today's
was,
rates.
on the contract, wasn't there a schedule of damages to be paid?
Yes.
Is that, what page was that on?
It was last.
It's towards the end, I think.
Yeah, it's right, it's one of the appendices at the end.
Mr. Bowen, you worked on a packet here. Can you point us in the direction of that?
Well, it would be give me any one of them. It would be like,
Appendix.
Near the end.
Yeah, it's the second to last page in. It's page 8, I believe.
there's one that says the minimum purchase price.
Okay.
Just tells you what it
Oh,
would
I was
cost.
looking at the early termination schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what,
That's what we
Yeah, that's
talked
what
about
we-
last time. It can be,
Well, see, you could do the early termination, or you could just buy it out if you want.
So there's a buyout.
where's the buyout piece?
I don't have that copy. It's got to be right next to it somewhere.
Yeah, it's minimum system purchase price.
It's not in this Riverhead.
Yeah, it's got a schedule that, it's on the next page, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not in this copy here.
I'm trying to find that.
Page
And
9.
then page
So it looks like, if I interpret this correctly, actually, maybe you should explain this again. It looks like we can't buy it out in the first 5 years?
I don't know if that's true.
So how does that work then? We have to go to the termination piece?
Yep.
So we can buy it out in year 6? We can't buy it out, so there's only 1, 2, 3 years we can buy this out?
Well, the termination fees is the same thing. You got a different page.
Yeah, it looks like in the years where the purchase option is showing a figure, that figure is the equivalent to the buyout figure on the previous table. So they appear to be synonymous that way. I don't know why there's NAs in
Yeah.
other years, but I think you're saying that even if there is an NA on that year, the default would be the buyout.
Right.
So
I don't know why there's two different ones. but
it's laid out kind of funny.
they're-
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense the way it is. If the buyout thing is the same as the termination, then you wouldn't need the buyout chart.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that the difference is that the early termination is if we default in some manner that we owe them that amount of money, whereas a buyout is voluntary on our part. We can, I don't know why.
Philosophically, I
it says-
understand that, but
Right.
the chart basically makes your point moot because the buyout's the same as the termination, and it only gives you a few years to do the buyout. So you don't need that schedule.
I think you're right.
All you have to do is
You just
default and you're all
default
set.
and you have to pay.
I'm not sure this came, the banks probably put this in. A lot of the language in there is bank language, which is, all the bad language is bank language.
Yeah, I guess so the question is, for $110,000, are there any risks in here that we're assuming?
I think the answer is yes, you are assuming risks. If you think that at some point you're going to want to do something that's going to require the removal of the system from the roof, then there are risks.
Well, let's look at it the other way then. Mr. Morabito's kind of laid out for the first 10 years, given that plans can change over time, but for the next 10 years, you're probably reasonably certain that the schedule and what we're doing is in the right magnitudes kind of thing.
Yeah, the placement of this system is on the newest roof on the building. We just replaced the roof last year, and the hope would be that that money is spent on a roof that's going to last at least 25 years.
So
it's not a prime location to look for an addition.
So the break-even point, if we're going to make $110,000, we'll have $80,000 to $90,000 somewhere around year 12, 13, 14. So if the difference between what we saved and what the buyout might be would be relatively close.
Plus, when you buy out, then you put it out to bid, someone else will come in and install it and operate it for you. Because they'd probably come in and bid on it themselves.
You're going to continue to save money even if you buy it out because you'll be running the same deal.
Actually, you buy it out, you save more money because you own it, there's no more debt service. I don't know what that schedule would be, but when you own it, there's no debt service.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? I wasn't here, and again, I'd missed the October 7th meeting, so I didn't catch all of your discussion then.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just a little nervous about committing to this because I feel like it would be a disincentive for us to consider potential renovations to the school, in the short term. I mean, that's my only concern. That if there's a need there to renovate or to do something with that roof, I don't want us to say, oh, but then we can't do it until the break-even point of 12, 13 years because we're going to owe money. And I hear what you're saying. That's just in my mind. I'm concerned that parents or teachers or the educators there might say, so we're locked into not making changes because we have an agreement.
You're not locked into not making changes. It would
It's a disincentive to
it
a
would
certain
color
extent.
where you would place it. Number one, the wing that was just had a roof put on where this system is located was built 23 years ago, I believe, 25 years ago. It was built as a one-story building. It wasn't built with the intention of being
Two stories.
two stories, so
right,
the
right.
structural system is not ready for that, so there would be a lot of work. So that's a negative on picking that location to do an expansion. The roof is new, that you would want to get a 25-year life out of it.
Regardless. I see.
Regardless, so there's
Right.
negatives even before you put
To me, that's
the system on it.
To me, that's the big issue. We wouldn't have put a new roof on with a
If we
24
were going to
life
change it,
if
yeah.
there were plans
Right.
at all to, and again, if you repair the roof, you can remove and replace the panel.
Right, right.
It's only if you do a major upgrade to the roof, which we just did, so
Yeah,
it
and
lowers the
they-
Disincentive
probability.
to do, I
that-
understand, right.
There's one more point on that. right now, all these solar power purchase agreements, we're buying the power. We're actually paying for the power that this is generating. We're paying for it at a lower rate than what we pay the UI. If we own it, it's generating power. We're not paying for the power. We don't have to pay anybody for it. It's ours. It's our system. So, you're saving all that money, less what it might cost you to actually operate the system, but that's already been been built in now. They're making a profit on it. They're running it. So theoretically, even if we had to buy it down the road, if you keep it operating, you're getting that power and you don't have to pay anybody for it. So you save probably a considerable amount of money then. So that's something to consider also. But I think it's probably unlikely that's ever going to take place based on that.
I think that was the discussion when we were looking at redoing the roof, was that we weren't going to redo it and pay all that money for a roof if we had plans to renovate that roof within 20 years.
I think most of these, we're not putting on any roofs unless they had a minimum 20-year lifespan, and the warranties were invalidated by any of the work we did, either from the roofer had to sign off on it. So otherwise, we wouldn't be putting them on any of these roofs.
Thank you.
Did I read this motion?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good, so we got that. So it is before us. Any further comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's item 10. Next up is item 11. We're going to have a series of these.
Before you do that,
At least on mine, no, it is. Can we do Riverfield next for Sal's benefit? Good.
Which item is that?
It's on, I don't know, I don't have the agenda with me, but
It's 15?
15 is Riverfield.
yes.
All right, given, and if I got the gist of this, we're not ready to move on. You're going to recommend we don't move on this item?
You can move on this if you want. I'm okay with that.
resolve the
Okay.
issue today.
You can resolve the issue.
Okay, because I had this marked for no action tonight.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday, we resolved the issues.
Okay. All right, very good, then.
Anything you want to
with-
share with us in
No,
terms of those issues?
Everything's okay.
With the board's permission, can I have a motion to take this out of sequence?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So what's before us is item 15 from the Director of Public Works, a lease agreement that requires RTM approval. To here, consider and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephia Holdings, that's CEFIA, for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Riverfield Elementary School at 1625 Mill Plain Road for the sole benefit of Riverfield School. The term of this agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. And further resolved that a system site lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephia Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Riverfield School at 625 Mill Plain Road for the sole benefit of Riverfield School. The term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Bowman, the floor is yours.
It's basically the same discussion we just had. Riverfield is a brand-new school, I guess it has a brand-new roof too, right, Sal?
Yes, it does.
And they were looking to put this in the building committee, didn't have the money to do it, so we're doing it this way, which doesn't cost any money. And basically, this will save them $9,000 a year. All these different PPAs are different costs. This one's 10.5 cents versus the 11.9 at Mill Hill. And it all depends on the amount of work that had to be done, and also on the bidding process. When it's bid, the bids change from year to year, so. In any case, it saves more money, $182,000 over 20 years.
All right. Any questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
That's item 15. Mr. Morabito, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sal.
All right, so
Thank
now
you.
we're back to item number,
The next four are exactly the same.
11.
item 11, sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, 11.
All right, so,
These are all roof
Chief
projects.
McCarthy, sorry, didn't realize this was...
Push this off to the end, you know.
I realize you're new, and this is a great educational opportunity for you.
This was an opportunity.
So, and certainly I trust the excitement of the meeting is not getting you too worn out. All right. Item 11, from the Director of Public Works, a lease agreement which requires RTM approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephea Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Jennings Firehouse at 600 Jennings Road for the sole benefit of the Jennings Firehouse. The term of this agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. And further resolved that the system site lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephea Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Jennings Firehouse at 600 Jennings Road for the sole benefit of the Jennings Firehouse. The term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Mr. Bowman.
It's the same word as before. These are rooftop units. Every one of these projects are rooftop, not parking lot units, so it makes it easier. Every one of the rest of the price is the same, 10.5 cents. They all won their bid at the same time. It's the same company. The difference is the town is paying an average of 18 cents per kilowatt hour. The schools are 17.1, so we actually save more money. And the reason the schools pay less is the larger units actually have a smaller and a complicated rate system. They actually pay less per kilowatt hour than the smaller units, and it'd be hard to explain why, but that's the case. About a penny kilowatt hour different. But again, we went into these programs. We have made the companies say they have to measure against a 15.5 cent electric price for 20 years, and we're already in the second year up at 17 or 18 cents. So it's as we go on, we'll be saving more money than we originally projected. And I updated, which I'll hand out to you, the updated projections based on the 2016 rates. So, firehouse, the roof is 2 years old, so it's primed to put on that.
Okay.
So we got a 20-year roof there.
Any further questions?
No.
We don't think they're going to put a second floor on.
Chief?
You're not putting a second floor on.
Okay.
But going down.
Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. All right. It's item 11. Item 12, also from the Director of Public Works, a lease agreement requires RTM approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement excuse me, between the Town of Fairfield and Cephea Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of the transfer station at 530 Richard White Way for the sole benefit of the transfer station, the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved, and further resolved that a system site lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephea Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of the transfer station on 530 Richard White Way for the sole benefit of the transfer station, and the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
And I'll second that. Mr. Bowman.
Go through the same
We're on item
thing.
12.
Transfer station roof needs to be fixed. It's in a project we're doing over the next year to fix this project, and once we fix the roof, when the roof is fixed, the solar will go on top of it. So it's the same kind of 20-year warranty with a new roof. But this is a very small roof, very small project.
So we enter into the contract today, even though the roof won't be
Correct. They won't be
completed
installed
for-
until next summer. So
So
they're
we've got
aware of
enough
it.
time to get through and...
Yeah, we've had some of the other projects, for example, the senior center we approved over a year ago, and we're not putting the roof on until early spring, and then they'll put the solar on in the summer. It takes 2 weeks to put the solar on, it's not a big deal. Some of the places, the Jennings Beach, we're putting a system there. The company's actually, the roof isn't strong enough. They're fixing the roof to make it work. At the Public Works Garage, they're spending $50,000 to fix the roof to put the solar on. So these companies actually, they want this bad enough, they actually fix the roof. Unless it's $200,000, but they're actually working and fixing the roof to hold the solar, which is kind of nice.
So we're saving twice, in essence.
Yeah, right. And while they're doing it, we're going to install insulation. That old part of the garage has no insulation, and we're going to install the insulation and do the heating, so it has a triple benefit, really. So it's
Wow,
interesting.
that's good. I would include that in your presentations going forward.
Yes, I didn't think, yeah.
Any further questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Item 13, Director of Public Works. Lease agreement requires our team approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Sephia Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Fairfield Woods Library at 1147 Fairfield Woods Road for the sole benefit of Fairfield Woods Library, and the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. Further resolved that a system site lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Sephia Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Fairfield Woods Library at 1147 Fairfield Woods Road for the sole benefit of Fairfield Woods Library, the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
A second.
Second.
All right, now, I believe I forwarded emails to the board this afternoon from the library saying they were in favor of this. All right, Mr. Bowman, the floor is yours.
Is this the library? No,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Yep.
Again, I keep saying the same thing. It's being put on the roof that was just replaced at Fairfield Woods Library. It's a brand-new roof again. And the benefit is about $6,000 a year here. It's $120,000 over the life of the project.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So this is, I think this is terrific. We're going to save money, it's green, wonderful. The overall strategy, are we going after every roof
You bet.
of a building
I have a
in town?
report. When we get through with this, I'll give you my report.
Because
It
that's
shows you what
kind
we've
of, where
done to
does this
date.
fit in
Yeah.
versus where are we going and what's our kind of overall strategy?
Yep.
Okay, so
I
just,
do have a report when we get
Okay.
through with this.
I'm-
Shows you how we got to here, what's on the horizon for next year, and potentially for the future.
All right, well, maybe we can invite you back at a future meeting just to review the plan
Okay.
and where we're going.
that's, because I think it would give us some perspective in terms of, this is a lot, but I'm sure there's more that
Yeah, well,
where
let's
we
put
can
it
get
this
a
way.
benefit.
We have 5 more that have been in the pipeline that are going to look for money, and then there's 11 other projects that we can look for next year. The big thing that's going on here is there's 3 things to make these projects work. One is the state program that provides the funds for the ZREC to do it. The second thing, though, is the biggest thing is the investment tax credit of 30%, which expires in 2016. So to hurry to get these done as quick as possible, because once that investment tax credit expires, there probably won't be any more of these projects, and that's how that's why we're pushing them along so fast.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
All right. Any further questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Bowman, thank you for that. Now, item 14. Also from the Director of Public Works, a lease agreement that requires our team approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Sephia Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system. I'm getting really good at saying that.
Yeah.
On the roof of Smith Richardson Maintenance Building at 385 Hoydens Lane for the sole benefit of Smith Richardson Maintenance Building, the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. And further resolved that a system site lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Sephia Holdings for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of Smith Richardson Maintenance Building at 385 Hoydens Lane for the sole benefit of Smith Richardson Maintenance Building, the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Mr. Bowman?
I don't know what I can say. It's the same over and over. You know, again, the roof is being looked at. We're not 100% positive that it doesn't need some work, but if it does, the company will help do the work to get the jobs.
And just to be absolutely clear, we have a proposal before us later about the Smith Richardson Clubhouse. These are not the same buildings?
No, this is the maintenance building.
Okay, so this hasn't...
One of my future projects is Smith Richardson, whenever it gets done.
Yeah, so this is a new roof and appropriate structure and everything else, so we will not be improving this building in the foreseeable future?
That's exactly right.
Okay, and Parks and Rec is okay with us doing it? The
Yes.
Golf Commission is okay with us doing it?
Yep. Jared gave me the high sign today, so.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the board?
Nothing.
All right, any comments from the public? Back to the board. Any more questions? Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now 15, we already did. Item 16, I'm going to suggest that there's some open questions on that we need to resolve. So rather than postpone that, I'm going to suggest the board take no action.
Yeah, you
What
threw it
did-
in?
We went through
What?
16.
You threw it by you?
Oh, no, that's,
16.
oh, that's 16.
just let me...
South Benson is not going to be on.
Right, so we're talking about South Benson right now. Let me
Okay, I was going to
finish
say,
this.
the Marine, that project, I'm saying that project is being postponed.
Right, but what I'm asking the board is that we have two administrative options. We can postpone it, then it keeps coming up on every meeting.
Okay.
Or we can take no action, in which case then it's up to Mr. Bowman to bring it back to us at the appropriate time when those issues are
Oh, okay.
resolved. So I'm going to suggest we take no action. If that's okay with the board, we'll just move on.
It is.
All right? Jen, you've got that in the minutes, that we took no action on that? All right, we did 17, we did 18.
Okay, if I may, again,
Yes.
just wanted to, just a quick summary. This is, as of tonight, we've approved 21 solar projects in the town. And they will produce over 25% of the town's total electric use, town and board education. And that's 6.3 million kilowatt hours a year, saving $472,000 a year, and almost $10 million over 20 years. Now, I have this for you, and I'll leave with you. We can come back and, when you read it, we can go over and discuss it. It shows which project we're looking at next, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much.
20 more projects, I didn't realize it was that much stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a long meeting.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Sheila, this is what you were looking for?
Yeah, you anticipated my question. I appreciate that.
Wow.
That's impressive. Very impressive.
That's great. Jen, if we could put a note down and have Mr. Bowman come back before us and kind of review the... Great, thank you. All right, so we've gone through that. Next up is H. Smith Richardson Clubhouse Building Committee charge. And a couple comments on this before we take it up. We've had some talk about building committees and building projects. And what I was going to suggest that the board take a look at is restructuring a bit on how we do this. I think typically we'll bring in a building committee. They'll hire an architect, an owner's rep, that type of thing, and get into the project. And I think because our building committees are relatively, or change members, so we don't have a lot of overlap between the members on a committee, there's a lot that's new. I think we have an opportunity to improve the process. What I'd like to propose to the board is that we look at hiring, rather than an owner's rep on every single project, that we'd go out to bid for an owner's rep or a firm that would handle all the town projects. And what that would let us do is have some institutional intelligence that moves from project to project. It also give the town some control over the consistency and quality of the owner's reps that we get on board, and not leave that to a series of volunteers. The owner's rep being somebody who is representing the town in that process. So my proposal is that we give that some thought and perhaps incorporate that into the charge of the commission here as being our first project, that they would in fact use the owner's rep as agreed to by the town.
Mhm.
We would still pay the owner's rep firm, project by project, so it wouldn't change our cost structure. But it would give us, I think, a little bit more power and attention from the owner's rep firm, because it would not be just one project they're looking at, but a series of projects. If we're not happy with the owner's rep in terms of how they're representing the town and the building committee, we could take action in terms of removing them and bringing somebody else on. And we could also make sure that we kind of get some of the A-team members of the owner's rep firm in terms of representing the town. And over time, from a standpoint of reporting and consistency and updates to the board, we could start to establish a more systematic and consistent approach across all of that. So that was my thinking, and I thought that it might be good to start with the golf clubhouse as one start. We've got as we heard earlier, we've got Holland Hill and Mill Hill coming up. I'd like to get something like this started now so we don't impact the schedule for those projects, but we start getting the consistency we need from that standpoint. And I think that if I look back on some of the projects we've had, when this board said, hold it, we want more information, I think it would help us do our job by having somebody we're dealing with on a consistent basis that knows what this board wants and how things should be updated. And also, I think it improves our building committees, because they will get more consistent reports, because we will help them over time know what they need to get, so they won't have to sit down every time and design their reporting structure, design this. We can have that move from one project to another. So once we get it right, we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel.
And that's important, because we've seen with recent projects, the spreadsheets and information that we've gotten, it's
Not
all been
standardized.
robust and accurate for the most part, but it's been in different forms and formats, and some were easier to read and understand than others. And we've struggled with that a few times.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. I'm wondering if other towns, if there's precedence for other towns doing this. I'd just be curious to see what the experience is out there. And I'm also curious in terms of the process. How do we implement that as a board? Is there a process we need to go through to make that happen?
Well, on one hand, certainly, all right. I think that we'd certainly want to put out an RFQ, request for qualifications, get some bids back in terms of what would take place on that. And also have a chance to talk to some different owners rep firms to see how they view this. I think the idea of looking at what other towns do is excellent, and I think that we can take a little bit of time and do that and see what, there are different approaches to building committees or building projects, but I don't know if we've ever gone out and actually explored that, and I don't think we need to necessarily do a comprehensive 6-month-long study.
No, but just I'm
But I think
curious if it works for other towns.
that we can go back and take a look at that
Yeah.
relatively quickly and get some samples of what's out there to see if there's any dramatic differences or whether it's a smaller approach. And I would think some of our building folks like Sal Morbido, Tom Cullen, Dr. Title may be able to give us some insights as to who to talk to. So I think that we can shrink that and check that out and see if something like this might be possible. What I'm looking for is something that doesn't increase our costs, doesn't change our cost structure, gives us literally some experience. Because if we basically, every time now, we wipe out the building committee and we come to a new project, we put all new people on it, they're all new volunteers, and
There's
then
a
we tell them
learning
each
curve
to
every
hire the
time.
architect,
Yep.
hire this, hire that.
Right.
And so I'm not sure we're getting the
Value.
experience.
Yeah.
We don't get the benefit of it. It's like everything we learned on Stratfield, we don't get to apply on Fairfield Woods, we don't get to apply on Holland Hill, we don't get to apply on Mill Hill. And I think we want to have a chance to use those lessons we learned.
And it's a brave new world, really, with the PCBs,
Well,
discovered. And to
exactly.
apply that key learning especially, I think, is important because
Knowing-
it's so complex.
Yeah, knowing what state DEEP
Regulations,
wants, knowing
yeah.
what EPA wants, knowing what the rules are, again, absolutely, from that standpoint.
I like the concept because we could have consistency and clarity, and I like the idea of benchmarking up front to find out, what other towns are doing. That's a good idea. So that's something I can certainly support.
So I think if each of us, in the next couple of weeks, kind of reaches out, some resources, we'll talk to Board of Ed, see what we can gain from their experience, see if
Right.
we can talk to some different school districts,
Mhm.
and see kind of how this approach might work. I would look at taking this up at our November 4th meeting.
Okay.
But I'd suggest that we, now this was postponed, so I think once, I'm not really clear, but I think we can either take no action or just postpone it to November 4th, since it's in the postponement cycle.
I think
It
so.
might make sense to postpone it to November 4th, so that would mean we'd have to at least
Okay.
take it
We'd
up
have some time.
and discuss
We have a
something
couple
about
weeks
that.
to look
We have a
at it.
couple of weeks. I would just add, at the Osborne Hill, they built the new gymnasium and they lived through quite a lot with
You
the
bet.
PCBs. And a number, some members from the building committee there were saying exactly that. They were saying, it would have been very helpful if we can use what we've learned and pass it off to somebody else, or just assemble this in a way that's just easier to digest for the building committee. So I think it might be a good idea.
And I
to look
also
at this.
think, if you think of not only us, but also Board of Finance and RTM,
Right.
it then provides them some credibility, some experience, that they're
Right.
seeing the same owner's rep person come up, talk to them. It gives
Right.
that person, that
Accessibility.
firm, a chance
Yeah.
to learn how we as a town work, what we're
Right.
concerned about. And hopefully it's the same as what everybody else is, but there may be some difference in terms of uniquely how we present or look at things that we can benefit from this on. All right, so if that's the case, given the hour, I was going to suggest that we postpone this to a date certain, being November 4th, if that was a reasonable suggestion to you all.
Absolutely.
And if that is, can I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion on the postponement? All right, any comments from the public? Back to the board, we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
And I think just the add-on would be that we do need a little bit of homework on the three of us, so that we're prepped for November 4th and looking at that. But then my goal would be to incorporate that into the charge by saying the building committee will use the town-hired owner's rep, and that would then become one of our standard charges. We may decide at some point to do that with architects. We may at some point decide to do that with elsewhere, rather than putting all that pressure on the building committee. And as we've seen in some recent projects, there's been an architect doing some preliminary work, another architect firm doing some, and there's been some conflicts and finger-pointing in terms of who did what when.
Yeah.
And I think if we get perhaps one consistent architect with certain criteria, or maybe two or three that we've kind of pre-vetted, it takes some of the pressure off the building committee. I think that it's got to be somewhat intimidating to a group of volunteers to come in and be making major decisions that impact the project, really in their first 2, 3, 4 meetings.
Good.
All right. All right, then, thank you. That's been postponed. Jen, we have that in the minutes. There's a motion for the tax collector. Are there any, all right. Item 21, tax collector, to consider and act upon the tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector and the amount recommended. Have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, any edits, changes, or amendments?
I would like to make an amendment to delete the period at the end of the sentence and add a comma followed by the amount of $12,788.16.
Second.
All right, that's the amendment. Great. Any more further discussion on the amendment? All right. All ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
So the item as amended is before us. Any further discussion on the item? No. Everybody ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Item 21 is done. Item 22, to hear, consider, and act on any communications. We have none before us. Item 23, to hear, consider, and act on any other business. We have none before us. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you.